So good day everyone and welcome to my discussion introducing chapter 3 language and culture. So let's learn more about language. So right now I am using language for me to communicate or to transfer information and ideas. So basically it allows to connect with people, audience and you, the listeners. In addition, language gives us words, of course, and ways for us to be able to share our own opinions, perspective, and views, no, in various things, not just one, but many. So again, here I am right now using language for us to be able to learn more and discover more about language, especially in today's increasingly interconnected and interdependent world. So before we learn more about language, let's define first what is language. What is language? It's a system of communication which consists of a set of sounds and written symbols which are used by the people of a particular country or region for talking or writing. So we humans basically we use a set of sounds when we're communicating through talking, and we use as written symbols when we communicate through writing or even typing when we're communicating in any social media platform. Is involved in a wide variety of human situations, perhaps every situation. Now talking about the relationship between communication and language. Communication is the process and language is a tool. We cannot process or we cannot communicate without the tool or without the language. So language is very vital part in human connection, no, in any situations, especially when it requires interaction between two or more people. Language is what makes us human. So we use this language for survival. We humans need to maintain our social world, no? So we needed to communicate with one another in order to understand each other. Discovering what is language then requires a brief look at its origins, its evolution through the centuries, and its central role of human existence and evolution according to Nerdcast 2019. Introducing my topic, the accounts on the origin of language. So accounts here doesn't literally refer sa account na atong ginagamit sa Facebook, sa Instagram, Twitter, and any other social media platform. So account here means a report, no, or a narrative description of past events. So specifically when we're talking about the origin of language, no, the start ang sinugdanan. And accounts here dili lang isa, no, daghan kaayo sila. Although there is a specific, reliable or definite source for the origin of language, scientists and experts in the field of linguistics came up with the ideas and have given a few hints on how they think language was developed or came about. So we simply do not know how language is originated. We do not know that spoken language developed before written language. Because of lack of evidence of speech of our ancestors, no, tungod anong lack of evidence, daghang speculations ang na-develop sa origin of language. And one of these are the most common and most famous theories on the origin of language. First is the Bow Wow theory. Postulates that the origin of language arose through onomatopoeia, which in simple words is the imitation of sounds in nature. Moran and Code 1986. Specifically, the sounds from animals were the most imitated from the environment. So this theory, no, gives the idea that ang kanang language arose through onomatopoeia or by the imitating the sound of nature. So the first human or the Homo sapiens is they imitate the sound of kanang animals, no, in order to refer a certain animal. So for example, first humans saw a bird fly, no, so they imitate the sound of the bird, which is the tweet sound, no, para ipahiwatig sa ilahang kauban nga, oh, the bird just flew by, no. Unfortunately, kani siya nga theory works into the limited extent lang. It's because it is hard to imitate those soundless objects such as rocks, cave, trees, no? And also, wala gi-explain ani nga theory how grammar and syntax develop. Next is the poo-poo theory. Language began with interjections, instinctive emoted cries such as oh for surprise and ouch for pain. So this theory gives the idea that language developed from natural cries of emotions made by the first humans. So, exclamations of joy, anger, pain, surprise, such as "Oh, ouch!" "Hey," no? So, it is said that those exclamations is kanang might have been the first utterances of our ancestors. Pero like bawal theory, it is just an assumption, no? It's because, for example, the emotional expression just is is kanang na made siya. It's because of a sudden intakes of breath, no? Rather, so lisod siya i-considered as a word, no? Lisod siya i-considered as a word. Therefore, it is unlikely the source of language. Next is the Yuheho theory, a speculative theory that human language emerged from instinctive noises made by humans during physical exertions and especially while involved in collective rhythmic labor. So this theory gives the idea, no, that language or the first uh, word developed by a rhythmic chants and vocalicism of first humans, no, involving communal labor. So for example, first humans is nagtry sila lift or push a heavy object. So this noise, no, mahimo niniling yo eh oh theory to make themselves feel at ease, no. It's because of kanang para ma-relax sila, para mabuga nila ang air, no? So, it is hard to consider it also as a word. It's because kadto nga noise, no, is kanang mostly produced by a sudden release of air, no? Otherwise, the Yuheo theorists believe that kani siya nga sound or this way is the way how language originated. Next is the Lala theory, the idea that speech emerged from the sounds of inspired playfulness, love, poetic sensibility, and song. This one is lovely and no more or less likely than any of the others. So this theory gives the idea that human language, no, developed human language developed by the out of sounds now made by first humans through playing and soundless songs. So for example, la like that. So in that way, no, kanang it argues nga ang word daw, ang first word gid daw is long and musical rather than grunts. Next is the Tata theory. Sir Richard Paget, influenced by Darwin, believed that body movement preceded language. Language began as an unconscious vocal imitation of these movements, like the way a child's mouth will move when they use scissors. My tongue sticks out when I try to play guitar. This evolved into the popular idea that language may have derived from gestures. So this theory, no, gives the idea that uh, language is developed through hand and thigh, through um, mouth and tongue gestures to mimic a manual gesture. So for example, um, when we're saying the tata theory, it's like ang atuang tang tata, it's like mo wave siya, no. So by this we uses the tongue gesture to imitate the manual gesture, which is waving. And also kaning scissors, for example, mostly gidaw sa bata nga maggamit og scissor is that mo kanang modlihok pud ang ilahang baba. So in that way, we imitate the manual gestures by our tongue, no, or our mouth. So that is the idea behind this theory. So now we are done on the theories in the origin of language. Let's now proceed to my next topic, the biblical, mythological, historical, and scientific accounts on the origin of language. So where does language came from? According to biblical account, the Hebrew Bible attributes the origin of language per se to humans, with Adam being asked to name the creatures that God had created. So Genesis chapter 2 verse 20, so the man gives name to all the livestock, the birds, in the sky and all the wild animals, but for Adam no suitable helper was found. So according to Bible, God tasked Adam of naming all the creatures. So how can he name those creatures if wala siya nagamit og language? So it gives rise to our language or the origin of our language. Next is the Tower of Babel. Passage from Genesis tells of God punishing humanity for arrogance and disobedience by means of confusion of tongues. So Genesis chapter 11 verse 7, come let us go down under confuse their language that they may not understand one another's speech. So Tower of Babel tells a story of Noah's descendants, whereas those people share common or one language. They settled in a plain in the land of Shinar, and they started to build a city and a tower that could reach the sky. So when they started to build it, it makes them very proud, and it seems that dili na nila kinahanglan si God, no? So God wanted to stop this. So He confused their language, and in that way, wala na sila nagkasinabtanan, and wala na nila natiwas ang ilang gusto i-build, and also, they were all scattered. So that's one of the biblical accounts on the origin of language. Next is mythological. So from the word myth, it is a traditional and legendary story concerning to some being or hero or event with or without basis of fact or natural explanation. So according to Greek mythology, the first humans spoke the language of Zeus himself, whereas it states that Zeus spoke an ancient Greek. So basically, it states here that they spoke the language of Zeus, so they speak ancient Greek. In Norse mythology or in North Germanic people, language was a gift from the god, so regalo daw siya, which is ni god V or the Norse god, and himself a brother to the god Odin, which is the god of war and the dead. Next is according to the Wasanya people from the east, all humans spoke a single language, but then sickness came over that confused their language and speak new words, developing different languages. So this actually there's a lot of mythological account, but I just included these three. Next is historical. The language dates back to roughly 150 years ago. However, all the linguistic evidence dates back to around 6,000 years ago when writing began. Consequently, the major history of language is discovered through guesses and written evidences that is much more than the era that linguistics studies. So, wala na ko na-appeal ang image sa carved writing, whereas the symbols is carved on the stone. So makita dito nga ang stone na asya yung mga written symbols, no? So that's one of the written evidences on the historical accounts on the origin of language. Next is scientific. Water babies Hardy Morgan hypothesis. For the originator of the hypothesis, Alistair Hardy, an English marine biologist, and Elaine Morgan, a Welsh writer and journalist. It is more commonly known as the aquatic ape theory. No, so this aquatic ape theory states the idea that our ancestors once spent a significant part of their life in the water, and also this theory explains how origins of many humankind's traits. So for example, the big human brain, especially the frontal lobe, whereas ang cognitive function are located, and also the larynx, which is also the the voice box, no, is placed below our throat, whereas it makes our mouth cavity bigger and allows us to produce more sound. So we all know that larynx is very vital in human speech. Next is Darwin himself once said humans don't speak unless they are taught to do so. That is, language is learned and not innate in the way that famous linguist Noam Chomsky and Steven Pinker, the author of The Language Instinct, say. So according to Darwin, language was not unconscious invention. So dili ta aware how does this language created or originated. Rather, it is a slowly and unconsciously developed by many steps. So at that time, he said that humans don't speak unless they are taught to do so. So language is really not an instinct. But according to Steven Pinker, the author of The Language Instinct, he believes that humans have an innate capability to understand language, and also Noam Chomsky believed that language acquisition is innate by means that all humans hold an inborn and natural capability to learn language. So that's end my report, and thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you've learned a lot in this video.